Okay, YouTube world, we're back again. We finally got a little bit of a warmer day out here in Illinois in November, so we actually have the new dual-core radiator installed, and I went ahead and there's neighbors cutting the grass. I've installed those Wrath Racing air scoops on the side of it, and actually on the one side there's an extra piece of metal, which I think these scoops are universal for the Predator and the Outlaw, but the Outlaw's made different because the Outlaw's puke tank is on the right side, and this extra mount on here is to move the puke tank to the left side, which I don't know, maybe the Predators are the opposite. I'm not sure. Anyway, I've got them on there. Now, the one thing about this, I'm not labeling this as a flush and fill because in the other two videos I've already removed the other radiators, so this is more of just the filling. But there are two bolts on here, and we'll go ahead and talk about those. There is a drain on the bottom side of this KTM engine, which will drain the coolant out if you're doing a flush and fill, and it's on the left side here, and I'll throw up a picture right below the coolant hose. There's a small, it looks like an 8mm, and that's actually the drain. And then if you want to drain the engine out, that's how you do it. And then on the top side, up by the spark plug, is where the one to get all the air out to burp the system is. So you don't really use the drain one. You can fill it until it comes out, and you readjust it, tighten it back up. But the main one that you're going to want to use is the burping one. And I'm a little concerned because this four-wheeler sat, I've got major carburetor problems, and when I installed this radiator, I actually had to remove the exhaust, so now I've got an HMF exhaust system on there, and the carburetor isn't tuned, but we're just going to get the engine hot and make sure that we don't have any leaks. I'm expecting leaks. I'm telling you right now, I had to retap that hole from 14mm to 16mm. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I've got two videos that explains what's going on with that. I'm actually expecting that to leak from the O-ring, and we'll probably pull that thermo switch off and put a crush washer in there and seal it up with copper. And then the hoses, if we get real lucky, we won't have any hoses, because I wanted to make sure that I run a thermostat instead of the silicone hose kit that they sell on the internet that comes from China, which is actually, they're decent quality. They get rid of the thermostat, but with the way I want to ride in the woods, and this isn't going to be an all-out race quad, hence the independent rear suspension designed for the woods. I need that thermostat to create the heat and release the heat from the engine. I just didn't want to continuously flow the coolant in there. So what we'll do is we'll kind of get started here. I've got the charger on here, and we're going to be using Amsoil's low toxicity antifreeze, and I'm mixing it 50-50. It's supposed to be mixed 60-40 from Polaris. I'm mixing it 50-50. I'm going to add Amsoil coolant boost to it to cut the temperature down a little bit. You always mix your antifreeze with distilled water, and 50-50 will be just fine. 60-40 means 60% water, 40% antifreeze. It does get cold here. It can get into last year we had negative 30-something degrees, and I went ahead and just mixed it 50-50 instead of 60-40. So I'll just start through this and walk through this. So I've already actually mixed the antifreeze, and I had to put a little bit of antifreeze in the radiator last night because I did have to clean it out, all the water out of it from when I had to tap the hole. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix the coolant boost from the gallon. You add 2 ounces per quart of fluid, and a gallon is 4 quarts, so 2, 4, 6, 8. We're talking about 8 ounces here. So we'll just put that in there. I'm sorry, you put 1 ounce coolant boost per quart, so it needs 4 quarts put in here. There we go, and then we'll just mix this up. Get to pouring in the radiator. Okay, and so what we're going to do, well, what I'm going to do is going to fill the radiator up. And hopefully we won't have any leaks, but I just see there being leaks out of that thermo switch. And with this being a dual core radiator, I'm really not sure how much fluid this takes. I'm just going to fill it till it's full, basically. We're actually going to go to the other side, and I'm going to kind of squeeze that radiator hose. Now this is the radiator hose to the bottom of the radiator, and you're just kind of going to squeeze this a little bit so the fluid comes into the hose, and it'll burp the air hopefully out of the hose into the radiator cap. And the one thing, once we get this ATV started, there's going to be smoke, because when I had to put this exhaust on to put this radiator on, I painted the exhaust, so there's going to be a massive amount of smoke coming from that. When you fill this up, I would just go halfway and see what's going on there. So we've burped that hose and got a little bit more down in the engine there. I'm going to go back to the other side and burp it again. And I'm just going to slowly burp this. You can hear it. You can hear the air coming out of the other side. And that thermo switch isn't leaking, so that's good. I was real worried about that, but it might have to be under pressure to leak, so we'll see here in a minute. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and attempt to start this. The problem is that this carburetor is not set proper, and I'm trying to do too much before everything else is done. So hopefully this thing will start up, and then I'll run it a little bit with the radiator cap off and let it suck that fluid down in there. I'm going to shut it off. I'm going to fill up the radiator again, and then once it builds pressure and starts to get some heat in it, I'll go back to the burping bolt, and once it has pressure, I'll crack it, and we should hear air come out of that. And then usually you'll want to have that extra copper washer. There's usually a copper washer on these on hand, and go ahead and replace it when you do it. So I'm hoping the battery's charged and everything. I don't know if it'll start or not. Okay, I've got big problems. I wasn't expecting that much smoke, so I either got to stop or I got to get a gas mask or something. It's all that paint on that header. My God, I'm gonna have cancer probably. But if you've seen the air bubbles that were coming out of it, I've got to run it some more to try to heat the engine up and get the air bubbles out of it. So I'm gonna start it and walk away is what's gonna happen. And now that I've ran the system, I'm gonna loosen this up. And get another copper washer here. That's your burp screw. Now we're going to start it up, try to get it warmed up again. The painted header is becoming an issue here. High heat paint didn't last. It burned that paint right off. I'll go ahead and open that valve up again. There you go. You can actually see the antifreeze. You can hear the air. There it goes. That's what you want. You want to hear the air come out of the system, and then you want to actually see antifreeze come out of the system. That means there's still air in it. But the painted header here is causing a problem because I seen some of it on fire, and I really don't want to burn this garage down today. So I'm gonna have to let it cool a little bit, and then I'll start it back up again. But I should have known that paint was gonna do that. Okay, well it appears I don't have any leaks, so we need to go ahead and get this engine up to operating temperature. The thermostat did open up and kick on. I do know that because I felt it go through the hose, and the radiator started getting really hot. So, and I don't have any leaks from the thermo switch, and all the hoses seem to not be leaking. So I just need to get it up to temperature and make sure that thermo switch is going to be able to turn that fan on, because I haven't heard that fan kick on though. But other than that, we'll run it, get it hot, and I'm going to burp it one more time, and then hopefully call it a day. Let it cool off, and then next time I come out here, I'll open the cap, see if the fluid's low or not, and then top off as needed. I'm going to go ahead and burp see if the air, and we got all the air out of it. Okay, well that's pretty much it on how to do this here. So it's just vitally important that you burp the system and get all the air out of it. If you don't, you can destroy the engine basically. But I've got other problems to work with here on the carburetor and stuff. This exhaust system, man, you could just smell that it needs to be tuned properly for the gas. But other than that, that's pretty much it. So don't forget to check out next week. Any questions, leave them below. I'm out of here. Fan kicked on, thermo switch works. Yeah, bitches.